They have no Navy, it's been knocked out. They have no Air Force, it's been knocked out. They have no air detection, that's been knocked out. Their radar has been knocked out. And just about everything's been knocked out.
So, as the United States and Israel dismantle Iran's military, the true nature of this conflict is starting to emerge. Because while the remnants of Iran's regime attempt to dig in their heels while indiscriminately firing upon their neighbors, suddenly protests and pro-regime demonstrations are popping up all across America, allegedly paid for by China, who, as you're about to see, will be on a path towards implosion once Iran's people get their freedom.
China is calling for an end to the war in Iran. Its energy supplies are getting squeezed. China is the world's largest importer of crude oil. More than 20% of China's oil comes from Iran.
They're going to be in for a lot of hurt.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Where are we headed with these signs?
We're good, William.
You guys doing this for free? Show this to people that say that any of this is grassroots.
You know, we're going to unleash Cheng on these people in the next few hours and days. You're going to really begin to perceive a change in the scope and in the intensity of these attacks as, frankly, the two most powerful air forces in the world take apart this terroristic regime.
It's all about the oil. Of course it's about the oil. You guys, being China, import 70% of the oil to your economy that it requires to function. So, Xi Jinping, hold my beer.
We're going to Columbus Circle for a protest that Roy Neville Singham is paying for. A CCP billionaire who's trying to sow division into this country. And now everyone will see that none of this is natural.
Look at this. The regimes backed up by countries like China, they are on their way out. And nobody's talking about how these dictatorships, these despots, they have benefited countries like China and Russia for a very long time. And once they're gone, those countries too will be headed in a direction they never imagined. Because for years, the Venezuela-Cuba-Iran axis didn't just back itself up. These puppet states have directly aided Russia and China in their efforts to evade US sanctions and make money while funding the projection of power and influence on the world stage. And China has a very special relationship with Iran. They buy 90% of Iran's sanctioned illegal oil. They pay for it in their own currency, and without that lifeline, China, well, they don't have the ability to do any of the things that some people might be worried about. And without China's money, Iran doesn't have the ability to pursue nuclear weapons and build ballistic missiles, revealing that the people on the streets of Iran fighting for their freedom aren't just in a war against their own government, they're also up against hostile foreign actors they could never hope to stand against, unless, of course, those hostile powers are also trying to subvert and harm the United States, which lines up the ducks for exactly the type of rescue mission we're seeing in Iran, which brings us to the real reason we're seeing the types of action we're seeing in Iran right now. For decades, this country has not only threatened America, and threatened Israel and all of its neighbors, who it is now indiscriminately attacking, it's been backed up by China and Russia this entire time, enabling them to do things that also threaten America and our allies. And with Iran supplying raw materials and drones to Russia, as well as being China's oil lifeline, it becomes pretty clear that invasions of countries like Ukraine and Taiwan wouldn't be on the table if regimes like Iran weren't around to make it possible. Which is why some people say China and Russia have a lot riding on the survival of Iran's dictatorship.
All right, so you can see that none of this is grassroots. This is all paid for. Hey, how you doing, guys? Where are we headed with these signs?
We're good, William.
Where are we going here? You guys are saying that this is grassroots, but this does not look very grassroots. We're going to Columbus Circle for a protest that Roy Neville Singham is paying for, okay? A CCP billionaire who's trying to sow division into this country. He needs to be looked at, Roy Neville Singham.
Isn't that fascinating? We've got pro-ICE protests all over America for months, and what happens? The conflict in Iran stops and the protests are replaced by another type of protests. Where are all the anti-ICE people?
China is calling for an end to the war in Iran. Its energy supplies are getting squeezed. China is the world's largest importer of crude oil. More than 20% of China's oil comes from Iran.
Look at that. 20% of China's oil comes from Iran and is all illegal, sanctioned oil, and that oil, the sale of it, just props up the dictators that have been running this place for 50 years. But now that the fall of this regime looks imminent, the people of this country are about to experience the prosperity their own country offers them should their government embrace capitalism and freedom, which is going to be nightmare news for communists and despots the world over who don't agree with those types of systems, especially when, as you're about to see, the only way a country like China or Russia can survive is with this regime support network, which is falling apart. Venezuela, it's no longer part of that network. Cuba's on life support, and now Iran, they're the last piece of the puzzle. Once they're gone, this whole thing collapses, and it's going to rewrite the globe.
Our number one global competitor and the biggest risk to our superiority, both economically and a bit militarily, China. And since China's doing everything they can to hurt us on trade and currency manipulation and a number of other things, Trump said, okay, I can play that game too, and I'm better at it. You guys, being China, import 70% of the oil to your economy that it requires to function.
Wow.
So, Xi Jinping, hold my beer. China gets, or actually got.
Wow. So, China, they're bringing in everything they need to run their economy and to run their military from outside sources. They need help from the outside world if they want to have a massive military and gas it up and tell it to go do something. Militaries run on oil. They don't run on electric power. It's never going to happen. They need fuel in the tanks of the jets and every single thing they've got, the mobile missile launchers. They need oil to bring their troops to the point of an invasion. They need oil to bring them across the water to Taiwan. And this explains why we had the pro-Maduro protests. Do you remember those? They were happening, telling Trump to keep his hands off Venezuela. Hands off Venezuela, hands off Venezuela. We had those for a little while, didn't we? Because China's getting oil from Venezuela. Not a lot, but enough for them to want to defend that territory with assets that they placed in the country. And now that Iran looks like it may experience regime change as well, this is nightmare news if you want to buy your oil in your own currency, evade sanctions, and project power on the international stage with that oil.
This month, Trump has taken away over 20% of their oil supply. By the way, that is paid for in the yen, not dollars under the BRICS currency umbrella. 90% of the oil leaving Iran was going to China.
That's crazy.
Yes, of course, Iran was a state sponsor of terror and was building a nuclear weapon, and that was the primary reason to do what he did. However, this was a pretty close second that no one is talking about. And a few libs picked up on this, like screaming, it's all about the oil. Of course it's about the oil.
Right.
So what? Trump's the first guy to actually not deny that, by the way.
But it's not about the oil in the way that people say it is. They say, oh, the United States wants to go get the oils from these countries and make itself rich. It's about oil and money. No, it's about oil and peace. So yeah, it's about oil, but not for the reasons people accuse it of being about oil. If you can't power up your military, you're going to have to be peaceful pretty quick, aren't you? You're going to have enough oil to defend yourself, yes, but to wage a massive international conflict for a very long time, well, good luck with that. At the exact same time, look at where all of China's money is going for this oil. 90% of Iran's oil is going to China. That means Iran is essentially funded by China. And that means that the people in Iran have no freedom because their government is propped up and stays in power with money it is getting from China to do what? To build ballistic missiles, to build a nuclear program, not to benefit the people of that country one bit. And you've got a people who are oppressed. They've been oppressed for a long time. They've got a government that says they hate America. The ducks all lined up for this operation to take place, which is going to be a good thing for the people of Iran and for the people of America, for everybody in the Middle East who lives in a country that Iran is now targeting with their ballistic missiles indiscriminately, something they can only do if they can sell their oil to countries who need it and also want to evade the United States or subvert us in some way.
Iran has what is believed to be 20 trillion in oil reserves, another 10 trillion in gold, lithium, copper, and a bunch of other things that were all being traded in the yen, not the dollar. Henry Kissinger knew this, which is why China was challenging the deal he made with the Saudis decades ago that, quote, all oil would be sold in U.S. dollars, the petrodollar. And if America lost that deal, if China came in with the yen and started trading all the oil on the yen, America could actually lose our ability to print money, which would implode our economy with the debt we have.
This is very interesting because you know what? As you see these armies of paid protesters gearing up with their bought and paid for propaganda, they're going to go out, they're going to get in front of the cameras, and you know what? In a city like New York, mobs of brainwashed individuals that hate Trump, they're going to see a protest and they're just going to gravitate towards it. And they're going to get out there on the street and they're going to start screaming and hollering. But those people that get swept up into this and go along with it, they don't understand that if the United States loses its ability to print money, all of the fraud, all the schemes, all the fake daycares they support, you think we're going to be able to keep paying for those? Absolutely not. These people have no idea how important it is to disenfranchise our enemies and save the people of Iran at the exact same time, which protects the people that live in this country.
Trump just stopped that dead in its tracks, and no one's giving him credit for it. No one's talking about it. No one's covering it.
Yeah.
All these things are related.
Because it doesn't make
Trump's
the U.S.
push
look
to
good.
take back the Panama Canal from China, people laughed at him. They thought it was a joke. But what it did was it actually forced a huge swath of China's trade to spend an extra $30 million per boat to go around South America.
Wow.
Greenland, massive national resources. People thought it was like some pet project. It makes us not reliant on China for rare earth metals.
You hear about that, don't you? How China says, oh, we're going to cut off rare earth metals to the United States. We're going to cut that off. They've got their own forms of an oil embargo, if you want to call it that. They've got their own ways to mess with us economically. They've got their own ways to disenfranchise our country with unfair trade practices, which President Trump has talked about many, many times. Does this mean the U.S. and China can't be friends? Absolutely not. But what it does mean is that by blocking oil supplies to them when they try to cut us off from rare earths, when they try to do things like flood South America with very, very cheap goods that totally wipe out the industries of countries while bringing Chinese influence to those very same countries and to the politicians who are there. And as you're about to see, even America's allies are not immune from hostile takeover.
It appears Trump is like the only one trying to keep China contained here, too. And everyone else is just absolutely asleep at the wheel. In fact, they're buying the stuff from China en masse rather than from us. You probably noticed that the stock market's going a little bit crazy today. First off, calm down. It'll come right back. It'll be fine. It's one day. Mostly, though, because the Strait of Hormuz being shut down. And everyone jumped to us like, how the heck did Iran shut down the Strait? Oh, Trump did, blah, 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 blah. They started freaking out.
And there's a reason.
Iran didn't do anything. You know who did? And this is going to blow your mind.
This is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that.
So, why is it important for Trump to do things like take back the Panama Canal and make it difficult for China to flood South America with its products and with its influence? Well, look at what's happened to the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, as you're about to see, has been co-opted by China in a way that makes who is supposed to be America's greatest ally with a special relationship not exactly the friend we need when we're in a conflict in the Middle East.
There's a little group called the Mutual Protection and Indemnity Club. That's the IGP&I. It's basically the insurance conglomerate that covers international shipping in that region, in the Middle East region. So it consists of 12 companies in total, all up and down the eastern side of the Atlantic Ocean mostly, 6 of which are based out of the UK. And yes, the same UK that told America that we couldn't use their air bases to stage our assets for the bombing campaign in Iran. This is the same UK that is also heavily reliant on China. Because they got rid of all their own energy. They need to import stuff now.
Yes.
So my question is, was Keir Starmer pressured by China? Wouldn't be the first time.
So listen to that. So in order to sail your vessel out of the Strait of Hormuz, you need insurance because this is an active war zone. And if your ship, which is full of stuff, which costs a lot of money, sinks, you want to get paid back for that. You're going to need to make a claim. So all of these insurance companies, well, they say, hey, we're not going to write policies anymore. And what does that do? That throws the free world into a loop. Because guess what? You know what's not coming out of the Strait of Hormuz since this operation started? Iran's illegal sanctioned oil. And you know what? If the rest of the world wants to have oil, they want to do it the right way, and China's at some sort of a disadvantage, it makes sense for them to pressure the United Kingdom and its companies into no longer doing business out of risk concerns. Because now nobody's got a leg up on China, you see?
And did you know that all of those companies, those insurance companies, have huge offices in China?
Oh, I didn't know that.
This is all the foreign policy stuff that Trump is dealing with right now. More than half of some of those companies, those insurance companies' revenue relies, not needs, but relies on the ability to operate in China.
Ha! Well, there you go. If these companies can't survive without the ability to operate in China, and China can't survive without the illegal sanctioned oil from Iran, it's a no-brainer to, hey, cut off everyone's oil. Put everyone at a disadvantage. That way, we don't lose power on the world stage because everybody's suffering. You see how that works?
They sided with China, and Trump came out and kneecapped everybody and said, you know what? Look, effective immediately. I have ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation to provide, at a very reasonable price, political risk insurance and guarantees for all financial security of all maritime trade, especially energy, traveling through the Gulf. This will be available to all shipping lines. If necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers.
Look at that. So, these UK companies, they are allegedly pressured by China. They stop writing insurance policies. Global trade coming out of this place shuts down. The free world freaks out. And what happens? Trump comes in and he says, hey, don't worry about it. We'll insure your vessels so that they can get out. And the U.S. Navy will escort those vessels if needed. And that is essentially a free promise because we've got these carrier battle groups over there anyways for another purpose. Those carrier battle groups are in the Persian Gulf right now and over by this strait, freeing the Iranian people, getting rid of their regime. And they're not going away anytime soon. They're going to be there long enough to stabilize the region. And this may have just tanked all of these companies whose government over there in Britain said, hey, allegedly, let's change how we're doing things to hurt the United States and help China.
So not only did the UK companies bet on China, they just lost all the revenue from the Middle East region in insurance because Trump's going to have the U.S. back the shipping insurance policies now. By the way, that will be cheaper because the U.S. Navy is going to escort ships, making the risk lower, and the cargo ultimately garner revenue for the U.S. of A.
That's fascinating.
Trump kind of for the win.
You know what? People don't give the president enough credit when it comes to foreign policy. And this is something that is absolutely important for the day-to-day lives of people like us because guess what? U.S. companies doing more business. What does that lead to? It leads to prosperity here in America where those companies are based. They don't have massive offices and they're not totally reliant on China. No, this directly benefits people in America. It benefits our economy. And what do we have in this country? We got an affordability crisis. So we need more jobs in our country. We need our businesses to prosper so that they can hire and grow. At the exact same time, we need safety from regimes that want to build missiles and attack us. And if we can accomplish those things while preserving our country's ability to operate as it has for hundreds of years and keep our economy from imploding while stopping adversaries like China and Russia from getting what they need to fund aggression, to possibly launch some invasion that requires massive amounts of oil, why not? This is a good thing. Allowing the status quo, this regime support network and all that it's allowed to prop up is bad news for the people of Iran, America, and the entire free world. What do you think about that? See you in the next video.